What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV back here for another match preview for you guys. It is West Ham at home, 4:30 kickoff on Sunday, and it's always a tough test, always a tough game when these lot come to town. Obviously, got to get in there early. Their cup final, and look, we'll see how we go this weekend. But West Ham, the tide is starting to turn for them a little bit after a really hard start to the season. They were shocking. They're still nowhere near where they want to be in terms of the Premier League table. How many, like 1 or 2 points only above relegation, right? So on that sense, they've had a shocking season. But when you're looking at their performances recently, their results recently, it's starting to turn a little bit, isn't it?
Yeah, they've still got a fairly mean defence. I mean, their problem hasn't been conceding goals. Their defence is still very tight. It's scoring goals that's been the problem. So they do sit 16th in the league at the moment. They are actually unbeaten in 3 and have only lost 1 of their last 5 games. And in their last 2 games as well, home to Chelsea, away at Newcastle as well. So not easy games. They've managed to come out away with credible 1-1 draws in each. They've definitely been playing 3 at the back as well. They've seemed to have changed. They can't seem to settle and how many players at the back they want, because it seems as though when they go to 4 at the back, maybe they're a bit better going forward, but they're a bit more open at the defensively. And then when they go 3 at the back, they're very solid. They don't concede many goals, but then again, they don't score any. I think it's indicative of their season. In 22 games, they've conceded 19 goals. That defence probably puts them in the top half. But sorry, have I got that right? No, no, I've got that wrong.
You've got it there in front of you. The form.
It's 27 goals they've conceded in 16 games and only scored 19. So in 22 games, sorry. So 19 goals in 22 games. That is where that's letting them down. Their defence is still, for a team like West Ham, it's not horrendous. 27 goals conceded. It's not great, but what's letting them down is 19 goals scored, and they've really struggled to create chances this season. They've relied on moments. They haven't been in games where, it seems like every game they're just keeping it tight, keeping it resolute, trying not to concede, and then taking any sort of chances when they can. And they haven't been able to use the quality of Paqueta, of Scamacca, of Bowen on a regular basis, and relying very heavily on their defence. Recently it's been working, but for a lot of the season, this is why they find themselves in a relegation battle, because they just haven't been able to use that quality, which they spent a lot of money in the summer trying to improve the quality of the squad, because they wanted after a Europa League run to the semi-final and after getting into Europe, they want to push on from that. So they're looking to upgrade, but it seems as though Moyes doesn't know what to do with the better quality. Yeah,
it felt like from the start of the season, really, that Moyes was trying to imprint a new style of play, a different way of playing for West Ham, and it kind of went against them. These flair players came in like Scamacca, Paqueta, didn't really hit the ground running. I mean, Paqueta and Scamacca, Scamacca, he scored a few goals, but really hasn't showed the reputation, why he's got the reputation he has from all those goals he scored in Italy. Paqueta had a good World Cup, but still hasn't really hit the ground running. And he's had a few good games in recent times, but he got a bad injury now, and you kind of fear for him. But they didn't really get the showing the form why West Ham showed them, and I'm not sure why that is. Is it down to the system? I kind of felt like Moyes missed the trick not keeping the same way of playing, because it was going so well for them, going far into Europe, doing well in the Premier League 2 years running, and this year it's all kind of come unstuck, albeit they are getting back to it a bit recently. But when you're looking at those 2 formations that West Ham are playing, what would you prefer to face?
100% a back 4. 100%. I'm looking at their results now throughout the whole season, the formations they've played. They've played a back 3 in 6 games this season. They've only lost 1 of them. And they've recently turned to a back 3 consistently now. So that has got to be a bit of a source of worry for us going into this game, that they're going to be the ultra solid. It's going to be a lot harder to break down than maybe they have been majority of the season. Very similar to AC Milan, to be honest. Very similar, because AC Milan were playing a back 4 for the majority of the season. They were coming unstuck until very recently, and then they changed their formation, became a lot more solid, a lot more harder to beat, and that proved a struggle for us to break them down. And I think West Ham could provide a very, very similar test, and that's what I'm worried about.
Well, here's an interesting stat for you, having said that, and it's all of 8 Spurs losses in the Premier League this season have been against sides playing a back 4. In the 9 games where we've played games that have a back 3/a back 5, we've won 6 of them and drawn 3 of them. So do you think that will go into West Ham's thinking at all when setting out their formations?
I guess that will. I think for their point of view, they've been getting good results in a back 3 recently. And I don't think they'll change that just because we have struggled more against teams in a back 4. But that is very telling. I think that's because teams we tend to struggle when we're being pressed quite a lot. We haven't been able to have the quality of players in our backline, and a lot of time in a few midfield as well, who have the quality to play through teams' press, and we do tend to struggle in those areas. And then obviously, if a team is in a back 4, it usually means they got a few more players in midfield to outnumber you, and then up front. So that is quite an interesting stat, to be honest. I didn't consider that, though. We've struggled a lot against teams in a back 4 compared to a back 3. And I guess maybe if West Ham are clever, they'll take that into consideration. But I think if you're on a run like they are, they probably just want to keep that good feeling going, that solidity, instead of trying to risk it to try and outdo us. I think they'll probably stick with their formation. But that is interesting, why we've struggled against teams in the back 4.
100%. And when you're looking at the head-to-head between the two sides, I mean, we got off to a very sticky start when we opened the stadium against West Ham. I think, what did we lose? Our first 2 or 3 games against West Ham in the stadium? Because we lost the first game.
Yeah,
they were the first team that beat us.
And then we beat them in lockdown at home.
So I'm trying to think, because I think we've definitely
lost more than
3-3,
and then we drew 3-3, and then we beat them last season.
Right, and then we've won 2 in a row at home to them.
I think just last season, 1-3-1.
So is that not right? 3-1 and 3-1.
December 2021. That might have been away. I'm trying to remember. December 2021. I don't know. March 21 is right. Might have been in the cup game. Oh, that was a cup game. It was a cup game.
It was 2-1.
It was a cup game.
It was 2-1.
Yeah.
We beat them 2-1 when Bergwijn and Moura scored.
That's right.
Yeah. So look, I think our form against West Ham, unbeaten against them in our last 3 games, but you never know what's going to happen in this kind of game. West Ham always turn it on. Sometimes we don't turn up to this game, but if we have any aspirations up the top 4, we need to start winning games like this. And with teams around us not exactly on the best form, you're looking at Newcastle, even higher up the pitch, Arsenal, to a certain extent Man City, Manchester United just dropped points to Leeds, even though most would say they are on good form. We need to start picking up points, because there are points for us to gain, aren't there? And We've got a hard run of fixtures now when you're looking at West Ham, Chelsea, and then I think we've got a hard fixture at Wolves away as well after that, which ain't going to be easy. We need to start picking up points if we've got any aspirations for this top 4.
Of course, you can't let these kind of games pass you by. I think that considering we're really lacking consistency at the moment, we seem to be getting our act together, beating Fulham, beating Man City, beating Palace. We seem to be getting a good run together, and then that 4-1 loss to Leicester has really set us back quite a bit. That was a really damaging result, especially the manner of the result as well. How badly we were. Considering how badly we were beaten, we have to make sure we don't let that result affect us. Obviously, we did lose 1-0 to Milan in midweek, although that was more of a close game. So, you just got to take that and move on to the second leg. But when it comes back to the Premier League, we can't let. We have to get back to winning ways as soon as possible to get that feeling back, because if we drop more points, then we're going to lose confidence in this fight for the top 4. I think we're going to start to lose belief that we're actually going to be consistent enough to get it. If we get a win, get back on track, especially back at home as well. The last home game we beat City and Kane broke the record. So I think it's vitally important, especially in London derby, we get back to winning ways.
Yeah, absolutely. When you're looking at the ones to watch for West Ham, you've got Jared Bowen and Declan Rice. Obviously, Declan Rice, one of the best defensive midfielders in the league, with 1 goal, 3 assists this season and 22 starts. I mean, that's going to be an interesting battle in the middle with Pape Matar most likely coming in, and obviously Højbjerg will be back as well. How do you see that playing out?
Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting battle, really interesting battle. Because obviously Paqueta, I think, is out, so I don't think he's going to be playing.
Probably be Rice and Souček.
So probably Rice and Souček. Souček has had a really bad season, to be honest. A lot of West Ham fans are not happy with him, but he is definitely someone who's tough, who's very physical, very good in the air, especially. But you think, if you look at our centre midfield, you'd maybe argue with Sarr in there, we're more mobile. And actually, I think I would fancy Sarr up against Souček, to be honest. It's Declan Rice who is quality on the ball, especially as well. He's really coming into his own. Even in a season where West Ham has struggled, he's been a shining light. He's still been brilliant for West Ham. And Højbjerg has had a whole week, so hopefully he'll be fresh coming into this game, and that's very important. But he does sometimes struggle, Højbjerg, when he's not next to Bentancur, I feel. He actually said, he had a quote today saying, Bentancur is one of those players that makes you play better, and I feel that a lot of the time, and it's very sad that he's injured, but hopefully we'll make do without him. But, even he's admitting that, he plays better alongside Bentancur, and he's going to be having that responsibility now alongside Sarr. So it'll be interesting to see how that dynamic plays out. Obviously against Arsenal, it wasn't great, but this will be a different kind of test. I reckon they can stand up to it. I reckon with Souček there, that could maybe tilt it in our favour in terms of mobility. But Rice is absolutely brilliant.
And with Bowen most likely going to be starting on the right hand side, are you worried for Perisic again this weekend?
Yes. I mean, Bowen hasn't had a great season, but he's
coming into form again.
He's definitely coming into form. Yeah, he scored a double against Everton. I think he scored last game as well. So he's definitely coming into it a bit. Obviously, he's got a player with a lot of pace and are very good on the counter. But I think the way we play probably is suited to keeping him quiet in a way, I feel. So I am a bit worried because Perisic hasn't been playing great recently. But I know Sufa on that side as well has had a really poor season. So I think hopefully which I'm predicting, if we can start Richarlison this game, I would be less worried about it, because I think Richarlison can help out Perisic more than Son can, in my opinion.
And what's gone on with Bowen? Because last season, I mean, what a season he had. 12 goals in the Premier League, 10 assists in the Premier League. Look, he was a good player before the season before that, but that was his real standout breakout year for West Ham, Jared Bowen. For one reason or another, hasn't really happened this season. Only 4 goals and 1 assist this season. What's happened with Jared Bowen?
I think it's very much the problem with Bowen is the problem with West Ham. Last season, they were much more on the counter. When they hit the transition, they had a lot of space, and players like Bowen, they really thrive in that kind of space. This season, they went to a different kind of style of play, trying to be a bit more possession-based, and that doesn't suit Bowen as much. Bowen isn't the kind of player who's really good in tight spaces, taking people on and using his quality in those kind of tight areas. He needs space to run into. A bit similar to Sonny. He needs that space to play in. And if you deny him you go a long way to stopping him. And I think we've seen, if you look at a lot of Bowen's goals last season, a lot of them on a counter-attack or on a breakaway where he's running in behind and running into the space and finishing. That's not how West Ham have been playing this season. West Ham have been changing it up. And maybe recently, since they've gone to a back three, that's why he's been coming back into form, because he's playing more on the counter again. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's a bit more of a threat in this game again, but I think that's why he struggled.
And Antonio, the man up front, obviously Scamacca's a doubt for this game. I doubt he is going to play. Antonio, only 2 goals this season and 2 assists.
Wow.
And when you're looking at his previous 3 seasons, hit the 10 mark in each one of those seasons. But you just know he always turns up against us. He always scores against us, doesn't he?
I think, again, same with West Ham. And again, Antonio, much more suited to playing on the counter-attack. I don't think he's that good with his... he's all right with his back to goal, to be fair, but I don't think when you're up against crowded defenders, he's the kind of player you want. You want him bullying defenders who are isolated. You don't want him coming up against packed defences. Yeah, he does have a good record against us, but I also wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't score again on Sunday. I think we've got the remit to keep him quiet. I really do. As long as we don't have him isolated up against Dyer, then I think Romero can handle him. I remember in Romero's first game against West Ham, I know Antonio scored, but I thought Romero really had the better of him.
That was a really good battle. I mean, Antonio did get the better of him a couple of times in that battle, but for the most part, Romero stood up to the challenge. It was such a physical battle, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I think Romero can definitely do that again on Sunday, in my opinion, get the better of him. I think he might have learned a lot from that game as well. So, for me, he's been in really poor form. You just got to make sure he doesn't have space and that he's not isolated. For example, if we're having possession, if they and then we lose it, if they play one long ball into Antonio, and he's isolated up against Eric Dyer, you do kind of back him to win that battle. So you got to make sure that doesn't happen. But in terms of physically, but I think if we can make sure we've got players around him, I think you can keep him quiet. And I think a lot of defenses have this season.
Yeah, I mean, when you're looking at these two sides, I mean, both sides have an extensive injury list at the moment. West Ham's, you got Zuma out, Paqueta out, Cornet out. 3 big players for them. Although I thought Cornet was going to do a lot better coming from Burnley than he has done, but injuries has kind of blighted his time at West Ham so far. Paqueta, obviously a top player from Brazil. Zuma is going to be a big miss from them at the back. And it looks as though their new signing, Agerd, is going to be out. He is a massive doubt for this game. But with them two, Zuma and Agerd being 2 of their starting centre-backs, I mean, surely that's got to play in our favour. And how impressive, me personally, think Agerd has been since joining West Ham.
I mean, he's only recently started playing because I think he was injured for a lot of the season. Yeah. He's come in since the World Cup, and he had a brilliant World Cup. And then all of a sudden he's become a stalwart. I mean, their improved defence has coincided with his inclusion in the team, and you can see why they signed him in the summer. And especially for Morocco in the World Cup, he was absolutely outstanding. And a lot of the time he was like half injured as well when he was playing. So really impressive. So it's a big blow if he doesn't make it into this game. He's a major doubt apparently. So if he doesn't make it, that's a big blow. I think if you look at that back 3 that was on screen, Johnson, Ogbono and Kelleher. I mean, Kelleher has been okay, but he's not been anything special. He's kind of been bullied a bit in some games. He's looked okay in some other games. Ogbono and Johnson are not top-level defenders, in my opinion. I think they're kind of lower. They're kind of bottom half Premier League defenders, in my opinion. They're if they were up for sale, I don't think many Premier League teams would be lining up to get them. So I think, and especially Emerson and Soufal. Soufal, I think, is a good player, but he's had a poor season. Emerson was pretty poor, I thought, at Chelsea. And I think for West Ham, he did score against Chelsea recently, but I think he'd easily be got at. I think I'd probably consider playing Porro in this game just for that. But I think that back line 100%. You got. I think individually, yes, you're thinking that's definitely a back line that could be got at. But when you're thinking about the formation and how Moyes set up and how he's played the last few games, I still think they're going to be hard to break down.
Yeah, and they always are when we play them, to be honest. But let's have that uncomfortable Sonny conversation. It's look, surely, I mean, we've said it so many times over the past few months. And in those months, he's had a good performance against Preston. There was one in the league where he had a good performance. I can't remember, against City. But apart from those games, he's been nothing short of shocking, really. And it's time. Surely it's time for either Richarlison or Danjuma to get the nod on the weekend.
I would give Richarlison a start. I mean, I understand that it's like Sonny is a special player for this team. He's a big player. He's one of the main players. I completely get it. But I think Conte's stubbornness has actually caused a problem in a way. Because if he had been rotating Richarlison throughout the season, and for Son and giving Richarlison more of a go, then if Son comes out of the team and Richarlison comes in, it's not a story. But now, because he's just continually put Son in, continually keep playing him, like even if Son was in good form, I think there's an argument that you've got to rotate him sometimes. Even if he's in good form, he's scoring goals.
Yeah.
You've got to give Richarlison a run out sometimes and use your squad. You've got to use your rotation. But now, especially that he's in bad form, you have to give him a go. You have to give him a start. If it doesn't work, you bring Son on and he can run at some tired legs going to the second and going late in the second half and use that as a strategy. But I think Richarlison needs to have a go from the start, especially because as well we've just played 2 games in a week, so there's naturally some more rotation as well could be needed. I just think that Richarlison has to be given a go in this game. I think Son was really poor the last 2 games against Leicester and against AC Milan in midweek as well. I think it's time to give Richarlison a go, honestly. I don't think it's a big deal. It shouldn't be a big deal, but it's only a big deal because he hasn't rotated him before this whole season.
I know.
And that's frustrating.
I just think it's criminal. I think it's criminal to bring someone in for 60 million and not give them a fair crack of the whip. Like, especially when you've got players underperforming so dramatically for a long stretch of time. Like, I don't get why he hasn't had a go, to be honest. And Conte was the one calling for more attacking players to come in for rotation, for competition. And it's like they're not been given a chance to provide competition for the players. It's like he's got his front free and then no one else is going to change it unless there's injuries. And it's I think Conte is doing a lot of these players, well, not a lot of these players, but especially the players like Bissouma and Richarlison a bit of a disservice this season by not giving them more of a fair crack of the whip. A bit similar to what we saw with Bergwijn last season, really.
Yeah, but this time there's less of an excuse because we have more than one. We have a lot of games, and he's still doing the same thing, which is really frustrating. Obviously, Stellini will be in charge this weekend. He claimed against Man City he had full control over team selection and stuff like that. So I'll take him at his word and say he'll have control over team selection again this weekend. But I think you're right. I think especially people like Richarlison, who were when they have played, I don't think have been awful. Obviously, there are some games where he's played on the right-hand side, he hasn't been effective, but I don't think he's had a fair chance. I think as well with Richarlison, you could see in his body language, I think he might be starting to get a bit frustrated as well with the situation.
I don't blame him.
And he went against Man City when he was about to come on, and then we got a red card, and we decided not to bring him on. He got really frustrated. I think he threw his bottle down or something. Like, he wants to get on the pitch, he wants to play, and obviously there has been injuries that have hurt his chances as well. He got a bad injury back in November when he was set to have a real long run in the team because Kulusevski just got injured, and then so it's going to be Richarlison for a while, and then he pulled up, so he was unfortunate in that instance for that to happen. But I think that it's about time that, and I think as well, I actually think it could help us because I was just thinking about it. Like, what if you think about the top teams right now around Europe, currently in top 5 leagues? Like, what top teams have two forward players in their front line? What top teams would like to press? By the way, like pressing structures. I can't think of 2 teams who have 2 players who are 30 plus in their front line. And I was thinking about this, and
To Liverpool?
No, I don't think so.
Well, Firmino was playing a lot this season,
but he's rotated a lot. And but look at them this season.
Yeah,
Salah as well has been off the boil. Like, I think when you're looking at how a lot of teams play recently, every player, of the teams, every player kind of puts in a shift. Like, when it comes to pressing and defensively, everyone works for each other. Now, I think when it comes to top teams, you can have, like, for example, Madrid have Benzema up front, like Argentina had Messi and stuff like that. You can have a player that other players can cover for, and even though they'll make their own contribution, they don't have to be the best pressing player to be effective in the team. But the problem is when you have more than that. For example, Man United, like Bruno isn't and when they had him and Cristiano Ronaldo together, it was a big problem. But as soon as you took Ronaldo out and you add a different player in there, they become a very different team. And I think with Spurs, I think we kind of have a difficult elephant in the room with Kane and Son in a way, because I think we all want Spurs to be pressing all the time. We want that kind of Spurs, the forward players, to be on the front foot and like relentless pressers. But I just don't like Kane and Son used to be very good at that. But now when you're getting into your 30s, you've got to manage yourself and your body at that kind of age. And I don't know. And if you're looking at their pressing stats, they're not good at all, both of them. And when you're trying to carry two bad pressing players in your forward line, that can cause problems when you're trying to press teams. And I think if we can have Richarlison in there, who I think would add a lot more energy off the ball than Son, in my opinion, then I think it could solve a problem for now. And then obviously you got Son to come on off the bench, like he did against Leicester, and really stretch defences. So I think as good as Kane and Son are together and on the ball, there's a bit of an elephant in the room, in my opinion, when it comes to them off the ball together. And I think it's starting to hurt us a bit.
Yeah, look, I can't disagree with that, to be honest. And I was actually speaking to Brian last night, and I was saying to him that, the squad is starting to shape up in a really nice way. You can see the right-hand side starting to take place. Udogie coming in next season. You can see the left-hand side potentially starting to take place as well if we were to bring in a left centre-back. And I was saying to him, like, if we bring in two centre-backs and a goalkeeper, you're going to start to see a really strong team starting to appear. But there is still a very awkward conversation to have about Kane and Son. Not only are they the wrong side of 30, especially Kane's contract running down. They're not, maybe Kane aside, but Son's not producing for the team as maybe he was last season and the previous seasons. And as well, on top of that, the pressing issue, which you're talking about now. So I think you're completely right. I think a conversation is going to need to be had pretty soon about these two players. And I think specifically Son, with the way he's playing at the moment.
And I think the pressing issue is exacerbated by a few things as well. First of all, so their ages, and the Son's not very good at pressing, but then it becomes even more of an issue when behind him you have Perisic, who's ageing, who isn't at his freshest anymore. And then behind him you have Davis and Longley, who also aren't the most best at pressing and aren't the quickest as well. If you had, say, let's say just for example, you had a Gvardiol and an Udogie behind Son, I think it's less of an issue. But because we don't, it becomes a big issue when Son can't really keep up with the press and as much as he used to. And I don't think he should either, because I think Son is getting to an age where you want him to use that energy that he has. And look, these are human beings. They don't have energy to, especially at Son's age, to just run for 90 minutes, like consistently, like especially at that age. Like, you start to slow down a bit, and you have to start to be smart on when you use your energy. And Son is getting to that age where he needs to start using his energy in smarter ways only when he gets into the forward areas, and he can't do that if he's consistently having to chase down the fullback all the time and run all the way back to the box, and then he runs out of energy to run in the forward areas.
It's just a natural progression, isn't it? He needs to find a way of how to adapt his game, and I think that you're seeing it with a lot of players, and you see it with a lot of players. And one notable is the Mo Salah as well, who's nowhere near as good this season as he has been in previous years. And it's just a natural progression of footballers, really, and it's definitely something we need to think about. And if we're going to bring in, let's say, like a Pochettino or a high press attacking manager, we're going to need to revitalise that front line for sure.
Yeah, I think so. Unless you can do things in a way which, for example, if you can, I think there are ways to do it. There are ways around it. For example, if you have two really quick and strong players behind Sonny,
you can only afford one of them.
Huh?
You can only afford one of them in the front three.
Yeah, and I'm saying unless you have the players around that can make up for it. At the moment, we don't. So at the moment, Kane and Son together, from a pressing point of view, is really exposing us, because we are also exposed at left wing back and at centre back. But if we weren't exposed as badly in those areas, you could maybe get away with it more often. But as well, but it's not just that; it's also Son playing Son playing 2 games a week as well. On top of that, last season he was able to do. He wasn't doing as much defensive work, I felt, last season, but also he was only playing 1 game a week, so he had a lot more energy to do that. I just think there's a lot of issues that are compounding together, and we're not helping ourselves to sort out these issues. We're kind of just doing the same thing and not really identifying, and it's quite frustrating.
It is frustrating, and he banged the drum, didn't he, at the end of last season, how you need a big squad, you need 2 players in every position. Why do you need 2 players in every position if you're going to play the same players every week? Just doesn't make
Yeah,
sense to me.
he should definitely have been.
He should be managing this squad a lot better than he is, to be honest. And look, I still completely believe in Conte, believe in Conte's methods, and I want him to sign that contract more than anything else. But I think that he is doing himself and the team a bit of a disservice at the moment with this selection issue.
Yeah, I agree. And I think with time, Richarlison, give him a go. And I think he could actually do that defensive job better than Son. I actually think when he gets back in those positions, well, I feel like Son, because he's such a team player, he does do all the running. So he gets in the positions, but because of the kind of player he is, he's actually not very good when he gets there. It's a bit like Eriksen. Like Eriksen was a very good team player, so he would always do a lot of the running, but when he actually came to making a challenge, he was weak. He was never going to win any challenges, Eriksen, but he was good at making the runnings and getting in the positions to do it. But I feel like when Richarlison he will do the running, but he'll actually get challenges in and he'll actually get tackles. Like it's very rare that you actually see Son tackle anyone. You just see him in the position, but I think Richarlison's different, so I think that would help us.
Yeah, he's a lot more aggressive, Richarlison, that's for sure. But look, interesting game this weekend. West Ham always bring their A game when they come and face us in their cup final. Having said taking into account everything we've said in the preview, what's your score prediction coming into this?
I think I'm going to back Spurs to win. I know West Ham are really going to up their game. They're going to make it so difficult for us. I really believe that, and I think it's even doesn't matter who they have out. I think they're going to make it so difficult to break them down. But I reckon, especially if we do start Richarlison, I think we can add a bit more energy into this team. Hopefully, if we can press West Ham smartly, like we did on occasion against Man City, I think we have more than enough quality to break them down and win the game. I want to see Porro from the start as well. I think this is a good game to bring him in, especially in front of the home crowd, get that support and get him on the front foot as well. I think this could be a good game for him.
Should be a good atmosphere as well.
Yeah, it should be a good atmosphere. So I'm going to go with 2-0 Spurs.
2-0. Yeah, I think it's going to be very, very, very tight game, and West Ham will probably have their best performance of the season, no doubt about that. I just want to see Spurs turn up, man, because that Leicester game, travelling to Leicester last weekend, was an absolute shocker. Absolute shocker. I think we improved our performance in Milan, albeit the front line are not playing well at the moment. You've got to say that. The last 2 or 3 games, they've been really poor. So I want to see a step up from Harry Kane on the weekend. I want to see a step up from Dejan Kulusevski, because I think Kulusevski's been poor. I believe in Pape Matar so massively, so I'm very happy to see him get an extended run, albeit at the expense of Bentancur, who's been our best player this season, or one of the best players this season. But West Ham, like I said, are going to come with absolute fire in their belly, and they know that their fans are going to be up for it, and their fans are going to be singing all game and getting behind their team. I want to see the Spurs fans do exactly the same thing and create a bit of a cauldron for these West Ham players. But it's going to be a very tight game, and I think it's going to be split by just the odd goal here. So I'm going to go for 1-0 to Spurs, and I think that Harry Kane is going to get that goal. But that is our score predictions. I want to know your score predictions in the comments section below. But let's get into Betmate before we take our callers. And the Betmate this week is a £600 pot for a £5 entry. And if you use our code WATTV5, you can get a free £5 to play with. The way the game works, it's just basically very similar rules to Fantasy Premier League, but you do get rewarded for defensive actions as well. So the likes of Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, Rodrigo Bentancur, and these kind of players, Declan Rice, could be really valuable in the game. But let's start off with my team, and let's see who I've picked. I've actually changed my team. Is that my team? It's not the team I've got here, but anyway, I must have changed my team up a little bit, so I'll actually read you the actual team I've got here. So I've got Fraser Forster in goal, seeing as I've predicted Spurs to keep a clean sheet. So Fraser Forster in goal, Romero and Davis in the back 2. I'm expecting both of them to make a lot of interceptions and tackles and get up the pitch. Højbjerg, Kulusevski in the midfield, and Harry Kane, my captain, and Antonio alongside him up front, with Højbjerg, my vice captain.
All right, and looking at my team now, again, yeah, I don't think that's right. Because, I've got Forster in goal. It's pretty much right, actually. Bring on. Except for... No, it's not right, actually. No, it's not right at all. It's Forster in goal. I've got Pedro Porro and Perisic at the back. I've gone for Porro to start, I reckon, with Spurs being more attacking. I reckon he'll start. And Perisic, obviously, we have to play him, and he's good. He takes a lot of set pieces. In midfield, I've got Pape Matar and Declan Rice. Sarr, who made 5 tackles and 2 interceptions against AC Milan. If he gets those defensive points, he could be within getting a lot of points. And up front, I've got Kane captain and Richarlison, who I'm backing to start on Saturday as well. So obviously you can change your team up to 5 minutes before kickoff. So when the lineups do come out and any of these players aren't playing, I can change it. But that's what I've gone for.
All right, so come take us on in Betmate this weekend. Like I said, £600 up for grabs this weekend. £5 entry. If you want a free £5 to play with, use our code WATTV5. And that is our match preview.